Go ahead and call the March meeting to order. I think we'll just wait for a roll call until after we have the updates from the office. That way we can have time for a few more commissioners to log on. So Amy, I think I'm handing it over to you.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I think I'm handing it over to you for updates.
Updates? Okay. So for office updates, our team has one open position that we're recruiting for. It's Ava, can you give the title? I can't remember the position title.
Yes, it is a program manager position for the Reimagine Middle Branch project.
And so Rachel from our team will share the link to that position in the chat. Grace Hansen, who is also one of our office team members, was interviewed by CNBC, and we have a link to share in the chat on the story that she was interviewed for related to, actually, Grace, do you mind giving a brief piece of information about what the interview was?
Yeah, no problem. So last month or so, I was interviewed by a reporter. I think her name's Diana Aulick. Hopefully I got her last name right. But she is based in Washington, D.C. And there was a new study from Virginia Tech that explained East Coast cities, specifically Baltimore included, are sinking or they have land subsidence happening. And they were curious how that was paired with sea level rise, what Baltimore City was preparing to do, and how they were monitoring it. So it actually, land subsidence is included in our 2023 disaster preparedness and planning project. So that was referenced quite a bit in the interview. I'm not sure if that part was aired, but yeah, it was a great time. It was only about a 3-minute interview that actually aired, but it was exciting.
Thanks, Grace. And then do we have any open house updates to share, Valerie?
And if Valerie, if you're able to come off mute.
Sorry, I was coming off mute. Sorry about
okay.
that. So the open house, we have a hold on the 26th of June at the Middle Branch Fitness Center down at Reedburg Park. We just have to do a final site visit with them to show exactly where we want to use the site so that they can give us a quote on that. So we will get a save the date out to you as soon as we have that. That site visit will be on Monday. But definitely at this point, please hold it on your calendars because we will be having it that evening.
And other upcoming commission meeting updates, we are planning for the April meeting, which will be April 17th. That'll be our first fully in-person meeting. And we've reserved the lobby at OpenWorks, which is kind of like a makerspace that offers different classes. And they also offer workspaces for people who have small businesses that are starting up. And so that's going to be the host venue for the April meeting. And the topic will be focused on kind of the intersection between community plans and sustainability. And so we're excited about both OpenWorks, they're also a resilience hub, and doing a lot of work that overlaps with sustainability. And then also there's a lot of work going on in the Johnston Square neighborhood nearby that we have the potential to get some really great speakers to hear about what's going on there. So Rachel will put in the chat the link to OpenWorks as far as what they offer as a venue, and also there's a link as far as map location. If you're not familiar, it's located on Greenmount Avenue across the street from the big Greenmount Cemetery. They do have their own parking lot and on-street parking, and there's a bus line along Greenmount Avenue as far as getting there. So I just want to make sure that people are prepared for a fully in-person meeting in April. And then we have also been starting to coordinate for the May meeting. The city's comprehensive plan draft is going to be released in May. And there's the potential to do a joint commission meeting with the Planning Commission to have a briefing on the city's comprehensive plan in May. And as far as that coordination goes, I'd put forth our Sustainability Commission regular meeting date. They'd also were considering May 30th, which is the Planning Commission May meeting date. And right now it's leaning towards that May 30th meeting date. I'll share more information as things are confirmed and we have a better sense of the schedule for that. But I wanted to give everybody a heads up that that's what we're looking at for May potentially. Any other updates?
Doesn't sound like it. So I just want to do just a really quick roll call for all of the commissioners here. I'll just start with myself. So Mia Blom, I'm co-chair of the Commission on Sustainability. Then Jared, I don't know if you can come off.
Yep, I'm present.
Thank you. I see Morgan Grove,
Here.
Phil Costa,
Here.
Donzel Brown,
Here, present.
and then I am not sure who the call-in number might be.
It's Inez Robb.
Inez, thank you for verifying.
Sure.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think we're ready to move forward with the rest of the agenda.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do a quick presentation. So we've discussed amongst the commissioners of doing a briefing to get the commissioners, just the people on the commission and also the people who attend, just a really good, deeper technical understanding on just one topic that we choose for that month. So I'm going to start off this month and talk a little bit about the Climate Solutions Now Act of Maryland that passed in 2022. I work with this on a regular basis and just want to talk about this law as it moves into effect, some of the implications it might have specifically as it involves Baltimore and this commission. So I'm going to present my screen here. Okay. All right, I hope everybody can see this. I'm just going to go into slideshow mode. Okay. All right. So as you may or may not know, the Climate Solutions Now Act was passed in Maryland in March of 2022. And it calls, most specifically, it calls for the reduction of Maryland greenhouse gas emissions by 60% by 2030 and for Maryland's economy to reach net zero by 2024. So we're hard at work at this. And the biggest piece of rulemaking or legislation that has come out of this is the Building Energy Performance Standards, which are requiring all buildings over 35,000 square feet to benchmark. Basically, just generally speaking, this bill does two things. It encourages building owners to reduce their energy usage by a certain percentage. And it also encourages them to abandon the use of fossil fuels or anything with net greenhouse gas emissions in their buildings by 2030 and 2040 with different targets. There's other aspects of this bill that have different funding earmarked to it, which I'll talk about a little bit, but I think these can have strong implications for Baltimore as this law is rolled out. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, one thing about the Maryland Greenhouse Gas or the Climate Reduction Act is it's very ambitious. Literally Maryland is part of half the states that have created some targets around greenhouse gas emissions. Again, these are just targets. They're not, there's not any rulemaking attached in most states just yet. Maryland is really on the forefront of this, and we have the 60% reduction that when studied says that this goal was what is required for us to really avoid the major impacts of green or climate change, greenhouse gases. So that's what is driving the goal. That's why we're trying to get to it. And then what has to be studied is really the economic impact and the technical impact to see whether this goal is feasible and could be reached. Again, new buildings are going to be subject to this law, and the newest legislation that's tied to that is basically making all or advocating for all new buildings to be all electric, so to not include fossil fuel systems. And I am not sure why my text is showing up like this, but essentially these are just some of the laws for existing buildings here. The buildings over 35,000 square feet, schools are exempted, and so are manufactured facilities is basically what's important about this law. We want to phase out carbon or greenhouse gas producing equipment by 2040 and reduce by 20% by 2030, reduce net greenhouse gas emissions. One thing I wanted to talk about here specifically is that this has carve-outs for environmental justice and serving underserved or overburdened communities. The law specifically defines this as areas with high poverty, high non-white populations, low English proficiency, or places on the census tract with high levels of air pollution, traffic, lead paint, Superfund sites. And Baltimore specifically hits a lot of these. So we think, or at least it's thought, that a lot of funding may be available under this as the rulemaking develops. Just like this commission, there's a commission that helped develop this law. Here are 4 kind of subcommittees or work groups that were developed under this commission. And there are actually some more that have been added, and we're, my firm is actually looking to get on one of these to better instruct the implementation of the building energy performance standards. For instance, there are a lot of gaps in how data for benchmarking these buildings will be gathered, who's responsible, let's say the tenant, the utility, the building owner. So again, lots of things that need to be shaken out in the work group for the rulemaking to actually be effective. Another thing here is the state says that it will have to procure most of its electricity starting on January 2030 from low carbon emission sources. So again, this commission, a lot of people have bought passed or brought to the commission things about BRESCO and renewable energy sources. So one thing that's buried in this law is seeking to change or basically phase out the term renewable energy and change that to low or no carbon energy sources that can be used in the state of Maryland. So this would cover things like BRESCO, depending on exactly how the law is goes forward in rulemaking. Again, this would require facilities like nuclear power plants, solar generators, wind generators. They would all be low, no carbon emitters. And then there's some talk in the legislation about biodiesel or low carbon emission sources of fossil fuels as well be allowed in. There's also a carve out for zero emission vehicles that the state purchase passenger cars and basically make their fleet zero emission vehicles. Right. Again, I talked about nuclear and biofuels, but just some of the funding earmarks that are in this bill. So 40% is carved out for low to moderate income communities. Again, it could represent an important opportunity for the city as we move forward and look for funding for programs to help forward the goals of the Sustainability Commission in Baltimore City. All right. I went through this kind of quickly, but I wanted to give anybody a chance to ask any questions because there's a lot to this bill. it covers actually a lot of different aspects of carbon emission, buildings, and other things and other programs. So I can try and answer any questions if I can, and then go on to talk about our next briefings. Does anybody have any questions?
Jared, thanks for presenting this. You mentioned that there might be some other potential committees. Do you have a kind of a idea of what the topics of those committees might be?
I do. So I will share my screen again. Get out of this here. So we created a list from commissioners a little while back. We did a survey, actually. We'll share here, where we came up with a list of topics that many of you said that you had interest or expertise in. Let me share this. And we just wanted to see if anyone was interested in doing a quick presentation, just to give someone a dip your toe in a level of familiarity with an issue, or just a slightly deeper level of familiarity with an issue here. So there's some names here on, and people have mentioned green space, transportation, disaster planning, green workforce development, just to name a few. This actually, I'm not sure if this is public, but we can actually make it public to see if anyone wants to put their hat in the ring for some of these next briefings that we can do. Also, I'm available to assist on that with planning and research as well.
Could you share that list for the new kids on the block?
Yes.
Also, Jared, I wonder in that as you were going over two things, talking about renewable energy, electricity, and zero emission vehicles, and then in underserved communities, or whatever the phrase marginalized communities is, coming up with strategies for EV charging in situations where people don't have a garage or have a driveway. That seems to me that like all those things intersect with that one question that, how are people going to be able to charge if all they have is a sidewalk in front of their house?
Yeah, that's a good question, Morgan. I can kind of speak to this just anecdotally, in that actually one of my colleagues is working on zero emission vehicles and electric vehicles, but we've seen a lot of movement from the state and different organizations within the state. So the Transit Authority, for instance, looking to move toward fleet vehicles. And then there's even something in the Climate Solutions Now about procurement and sourcing electric vehicles in the coming years as opposed to fossil fuel vehicles. We've seen less movement on the consumer side to build infrastructure for vehicles. However, independently, we've seen carve-outs with both the BEPS, so basically allowing carve-outs or exemptions for folks who have EV chargers on site, who would have to report that in their energy usage. They don't have to report the charging stations. But we haven't seen anything about, chargers on city streets yet. We haven't seen that coming through yet. So, I mean, that could be an opportunity for movement or higher adoption in low to moderate income communities.
Thank you. And, it might be something where the city has to say, okay, what are some design guidelines or practices that could be adopted for people to do things? I remember talking with Aubrey Germ about it. And, one of the questions is, well, if you don't always have a guaranteed parking spot in front of your house, that also complicates things, right? But it seems it'd be great if that could start to get thought out, or some, recommendations for how homeowners, and then is what happens for renters could be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Share a little bit more context on that, Morgan. The Parking Authority of Baltimore City, they have supported the rollout of the equitable distribution of certain publicly available charging infrastructure across the city. And some of that was supported with various different grant funding or grant fund sources. I put a link in the chat to their website because there were some legislative considerations for how those permits will be approved, but also some of the questions came up in terms of some of those same questions came up in terms of like how is that infrastructure being rolled out in such a way that certain areas or communities have access. I will also just add that for the understanding that for low to moderate income households, purchasing a new electric vehicle may not always be an opportunity, but there are some efforts to look into electric vehicle car sharing programs that may provide access to households that aren't planning to purchase an electric vehicle, but could still benefit from an EV car sharing initiative.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Ava.
May I add, I know this is not in the current bill, but however, I think this kind of dovetails on the comments that were just made, is financing for those. There should be financing incentives for people as they're getting, they may not want a ride share. They might want to have their own vehicle. So if there are financing incentives for them to get an EV, and on top of that, having a parking station or in their community.
I will note that there are some carve-outs for funding right here that aren't fully specified. So perhaps that's something we could even touch on with the role of the commission for that's Baltimore specific.
Yeah, I think that there should be consideration for being Baltimore specific, particularly because insurance rates for people driving a regular car are Baltimore specific. So if you live in Baltimore, your just regular car insurance is more expensive than someone that lives outside of the city. So those financial considerations are things that people think about every day about their decision making. And so if it could be a Baltimore, if we're getting overcharged for insurance in the city for maintaining a vehicle, we should get undercharged for financing a vehicle that is healthy for the environment and good for sustainability.
Thanks, Santo.
Thank you very much. I just want to note that we've been joined by Commissioner Nicolette Saint for the record. So thanks for that briefing, Jared. I think it's really incredibly helpful. And for some future topics as well.
Right. And we'll send out that list for future topics. If anyone is interested in presenting on a future topic, just either highlight your name on the list or and we'll reach out to you. Does anyone actually, right while we're here now, have any interest on either learning about anything specifically or would like to present on something specifically in a briefing?
So in terms of this is Nicolette, I'm always able to speak about all things disaster and anything at the intersection of resilience and disaster planning. But in terms of something I've been thinking about lately, and I don't know if this is something that would be of interest to the group, at the federal level and in like some national organizations that are tackling this issue, one of the conversations that we've been having a lot lately is about how to harmonize metrics. So specifically around Scope 3 emissions, there's been a lot of recognition that without figuring out a way to harmonize how we're calculating certain things in different parts of healthcare, for example, and across different systems, it's difficult to know if we're double counting things or if we're counting them consistently. So in some instances, when it comes to, for example, science-based targets that some of these entities are looking to meet, it is very difficult for them to assess correctly. I don't know if that's something that the group is interested in. This is kind of a rabbit hole that I've been in over the couple of weeks and I wanted to bring up here, but you know, it's fairly simple to say, you know, when we're thinking about how we're measuring and quantifying, there's always a need to think about how we're being accurate. But I feel like the implications are greater in this space. And so I just wanted to lift that up and see if that was of interest to anyone else in the commission.
Yes, certainly, Edgy, my organization, we are working on the exact same thing. If you have a chance to reach out to us, I'd love to talk to you about that. And yeah, we are in that process of developing um, a dashboard of engagement between the community and the environment. And so a lot of people are doing, I'll use an example, a lot of people are doing air quality testing, but there is no one single place to get the information, and the information that's collected is collecting different types of air quality residuals, whether it's from the Curtis Bay area or the Middle Branch area or whatever area in Baltimore, but having all of that data be put in one place so it's not as redundant as it has been in the past.
Yep.
But we're actively working on that right now, and I can give you a little bit of update of what we're doing at Edgy, if you don't mind. But we're doing air quality testing, water quality testing. We are hosting a invasive species, active invasive species eradication program in the Middle Branch and along the harbor. So I just encourage everyone to go to our website and take a look at what we're doing.
Yeah, and Nicolette, I would also be interested as well. So my firm will do a decent amount to calculating scope 1 and scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions, but calculating scope 3, as you know, is a lot more complex. Even calculating scope 1 and 2 emissions is can be tricky depending on the access that the utility gives you. So I would like to talk about that a little bit more and learn a little bit more about calculating scope 3 emissions as well.
Just so we can kind of make sure everyone's on the same page. Does everyone know the difference between scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions? We want to make sure we're, if not, then we're like clarifying the language that we're using.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And
I think it's
with
helpful for,
yeah, I think maybe we could plan a air quality testing side meeting with some of our partners that we're working with at CERC, the Smithsonian, and IMET, and other groups. We are looking for air quality testing sites and looking to train citizen scientists to monitor those sites. So we have a number pointed out, but if you in your communities that you know are able to provide a site in which we can provide an air monitoring kit, it's not large at all. It just needs access for someone to get to it for maintenance or for calibration. But each of those sites can be calibrated for monitoring whatever that site feels like it needs to monitor. So, for example, one site we have is near the highway, and so they want to monitor carbon emissions near the highway in their community. So I'm open to have that conversation and let anyone into that conversation. We have 15 monitors going ready to go right now, but we're launching the program in May. So there's a lot of opportunity for the conversation to be open on opportunities and sites that would be available in various communities.
So am I hearing that we would like to have a briefing on metrics and a conversation as a commission, as well as potentially set up a separate meeting for those that are interested in having a deeper conversation about alignment? I think I'm seeing some head, so yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So
Yeah.
Nicolette, you'd be willing to lead that briefing?
I will find someone who I think is the right person to lead it because I feel like I have more questions than answers, but I can think of a couple people that I think would be good. Let's see if we can maybe do a virtual panel.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for that. So we'll just kind of loop back around to see when the timing for that would work well. Since we have a couple of an agenda plan for the next few months. There was a hand that was raised and then it was lowered. I just want to make sure that there wasn't.
Yi Lu, I think.
Yes, that's me. Yeah. Actually, I am from the Morgan State University. I'm a professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. So I mean that if our commission is interested in, and then I can give a presentation on civil rights and subsidies in our Baltimore. So based on my group's research.
Thank you. Can you put your contact information in so that we can reach back out?
Sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Sorry, Jared, I'm gonna throw it back over to you. But you're on mute.
Yep, sorry about that. So I think that's just about all for the briefing. Nicolette, I'd love to follow up with you because it seems like we've got some interesting things to say about the scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, and maybe we can even find a time to do a panel and present. So looking forward to that. I think that's also, I can send it over to Amy actually to talk about the sustainability plan and commitment to accountability.
Sure. Give me
If
a
you're
second
ready.
here to share my slides. And then... So every year, kind of around this time, our team and the commission, we work together to put together an annual report to report out on the progress made on the 2019 sustainability plan. And it's actually something that is a role within that's specified for the commission and the duties that they're given in the city code. So related to the sustainability plan, the commission shall prepare a comprehensive sustainability plan and from time to time recommend appropriate amendments. And then related to annual reports, the commission shall report annually to the city council on its activities. And as far as completing these things, commission staff, the Department of Planning Office of Sustainability will provide staff for the commission in the development and implementation of the plan. So just to kind of provide some background on where this kind of reporting process comes from relative to the role of the commission and the Office of Sustainability. A bit of an overview on the 2019 sustainability plan. It's built around 5 themes and a total of 23 topics. So the 5 themes are community, human-made systems, climate resilience, nature in the city, and economy. And then under each of those topics, there are a variety of strategies and actions that are identified to advance those topics. A total of 78 measures of success as far as other ways of measuring progress relative to those topics. So it's a really broad and robust plan as far as compared to the previous sustainability plan that had a more narrow framing of sustainability. This is a much wider view of sustainability that gets into things like arts and culture, and noise was a topic that came up as a priority that was put into the sustainability plan that are maybe not kind of traditional environmental topics that people might think of. And in the sustainability plan, there's then also a commitment for reporting. And I just wanted to highlight these two different pieces of text from the plan because they kind of emphasize why we do the annual reporting that we do. And also, it also sets the frame of the sustainability plan is not intended to be the local government plan or the Office of Sustainability's plan or the Commission's plan. It's meant to be a plan that everyone in Baltimore has a role in implementing. And so that's also the frame that we come from with looking to report on progress that's made. So achieving the goals set forth in the sustainability plan will require the creativity, commitment, and participation of all of us. No single entity alone, not the government nor any one person or community, can transform Baltimore into a more sustainable and equitable city. We can only do it together. There is a role for every resident, community organization, business, faith-based organization, and institution in making this vision for Baltimore reality. And then related to the commitment for reporting, advancing the goals of this plan requires more than just a commitment to act. It requires a commitment to be held accountable. A way for us to reach our equity goals is to ensure that we are learning from our failures and our successes. Tracking our progress and monitoring our ability to advance equity and sustainability goals are essential responsibilities of the plan. So I feel like that's helpful framing to understand where we're coming from with putting together an annual report relative to implementation of the sustainability plan. We've been doing this for a few years. We kind of have an outline that we've found to be pretty successful. We've kind of played around as far as we've had some really short annual reports. We had an 80-page annual report one year and decided that that was kind of going a little bit too far with it. So we found kind of a good balance of the kind of content. And so just to share with you kind of for anybody not familiar with it, what's typically included, we have kind of the introductory pieces about like who are the Commission and the Office of Sustainability, an executive summary. The co-chairs typically have a message from the Commission that is in the front of the annual report. And then kind of the bulk of the content of the annual report covers accomplishments in that year related to the 5 different themes of the plan and the associated topics and actions. And then we also kind of looking forward towards the end include kind of what the sustainability agenda is for the current year and what's coming up, what the kind of major focuses are. And then related to that huge number that I listed of the number of different strategies and actions, there's a matrix in the back that then we have kind of a like green light to red light system of 5 different categories that indicates where each of those actions is on making progress towards implementation. And so that's in the annual report as well. And then we acknowledge all of the folks involved. So like this 2-page layout is an example from last year of the community section of the annual report where we featured 2 kind of larger stories with photos and text in more details. And then we had some bulleted accomplishments on the following page and some kind of data snapshots and graphs. And then some other instances, there were maps to kind of show like some of the measures of success and updates on those. And as I said, the strategies and actions within the plan, this is kind of what that looks like as far as the red to green system showing progress. And then the little line kind of shows what stage the action had been at the previous year and kind of what progress was made over the course of the year. We've been working on kind of assessing for 2023 what the progress has been on advancing actions from the plan. In 2022, there were a total of 110 actions, or 45%, that had reached mid stages, advanced, or implemented and ongoing. This year that's up, and so this is a preliminary report. As I finish totaling things, these numbers will probably go up a little bit, but right now I'd calculated 54% have reached mid stages or beyond, and the kind of the first stage, there's still pending, which is basically not much has happened. The first progress is early stages. 88% of the actions in the plan have reached early stages or beyond, up from 82% last year. And then last year there were 11 actions that were at completion, and this year there's at least 21 actions that have reached completed status. And so we'll be able to share more on that in the annual report. Oops. And then kind of one of our steps for determining kind of accomplishments that would be good to share in the annual report, we kind of go through all those different actions and gather information on what's been accomplished over the course of the year relative to the different actions and different topics. And so I've pulled together kind of a list of some of the highlights across the different topics in the plan. And so I'll share some of those now. And one thing, if we have enough time to talk once I run through these, it would be great to get some thoughts as far as what people feel like are kind of the top stories related to the 5 themes that we should highlight with additional detail in text and photos versus prioritizing ones that would be shared more as kind of bullet point status updates. So related to the neighbors topic, Department of Planning has been working on updates to make the zoning code easier to digest for the average person. The Free Baltimore Wi-Fi program has been introduced, which will provide Wi-Fi service at recreation centers, and from there it's planned to be further expanded. The Planning Department has a new equity coordinator position created to help establish measures and assist with improving equitable community engagement. Environmental literacy, we've coordinated with Joanna P. Sunier on reporting on environmental literacy and healthy school environments. As of this school year, the curriculum management plan identifies environmental literacy as kind of part of that integrated curriculum as a official kind of point within the curriculum. Last year, DPW launched the Eco Warrior programs for schools to encourage them to take sustainable actions. The school system has begun offering assistance to small Black-run nonprofits and companies to help them navigate the school system's procurement system. There was a tree training by the Baltimore Tree Trust for ground staff. There's been a lot of work at improving air quality in the schools with HAVC projects and having training on environmental air quality for school staff. One of the actions that reached kind of the completed phase is all 155 schools have a community site coordinator, site specialist, so that's an action that reached completion. There were 25 electric school buses added to the school system's fleet. Related to waste and recycling, the EPA awarded DPW with a grant to support construction of a co-located compost facility. And then there was a bill introduced by City Council related to recyclable materials and yard waste to divert those materials from landfills and incinerators. I believe that that's still active and hasn't been passed, but it was introduced. Then a few things related to urban agriculture. There was a grant to the Farm Alliance to build out the Black Butterfly Teaching Farm, which is located in South Baltimore. And the Food Policy Division has partnered with Morgan State to launch an online portal for food entrepreneurs. And then also that division has developed a contract partnership connecting a produce box vendor with the Farm Alliance of Baltimore to support their products. So this is kind of generally, this is the first topic. I have a lot of these. I don't know if we would want to kind of discuss as we go or wait to the end to kind of discuss what people feel like are highlights from the topics.
Amy, can we take just a quick break for
Yep.
any questions that we might have from commissioners?
Mhm.
Especially Morgan and Phil, I just want to give you an opportunity since this is your first annual review process and the first time that we've actually done it this way.
Thank you. Amy, I had a question about Camp Small's work in wood reuse, and would that appear under waste and recycling, or does it appear somewhere else?
Actually, that probably would appear under waste and recycling, so that's a good catch. Is there a particular kind of advancement or expansion of their program as far as like what the specific accomplishment is that we should make sure to recognize?
Well, I think you would need to talk with Sean Preston,
Okay.
and you know, they continue to grow, and they would be able to report the numbers of inactivities, and you know, fun things like wood from Camp Small has been used to build new exhibition areas for animals at the Maryland Zoo. You know, so,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, the goats like it. So you know, I would talk with Sean and you know, just find out from them where they are.
Okay, great.
And I don't know, you know, how the reporting works exactly, but for instance, there was a number of Forest Service awards that went to nonprofits in Baltimore for tree planting. I think Baltimore Tree Trust got 5 million, Still Meadow got 2 million.
Yeah, so those will be, we have the 5 different themes, and in the nature and the city theme, those would fall there. And we do have those things captured. I had a hard time with some of the grant award things where there's a lot that fall in one category as far as for this slideshow, how best to kind of recognize those since there's potentially lots of different ones, but that's definitely a thing that's on our radar.
Cool, thanks.
I don't have a particular question. I thank you for sharing all this information. It's great to see and kind of have a better idea of everything that's happening. I guess my only other comment would be, I'm not to the point that was made about Camp Small. I'm sure that you guys have your finger on pulse of all these amazing things happening across the city, but I'm sure there are other things that maybe are happening that you guys aren't even aware of. I guess, is there a kind of open call for other things that may be happening to be included on these lists that you know, didn't reach your radar, that sort of thing? Just because I'm sure that there are, you know, a few things here and there that may rise to this list as well, if made aware.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of the purpose of sharing this information before we kind of start putting the annual report together is to recognize that we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And we kind of do our best to try to reach out to partners that we know are working on some of these topics, since like some of these things are things that are outside of the scope of what our staff directly works on. And we try to have a sense of what's going on. I also, just so you know, kind of one of my methods is I have a whole bunch of different Google alerts set up for different topics, so that when there are news items relative to the sustainability plan, that I then have email folders that I save things in throughout the year to go and pull out to help remember kind of some of the newsworthy things going on.
Great. Thank you. This is great info.
And so just to also get back, so like at the very end of this presentation, I have a slide that's kind of some discussion points, and maybe I'll skip ahead to that just so that folks can kind of think ahead on some of the feedback that I was looking to get. So do commission members have thoughts on priorities to share in the message from the commission? So thinking about 2023 and what was of importance to the commission. Again, relative to the point that was just brought up, do you recognize anything that's missing? I'm happy to take that feedback as part of the discussion, or if folks have things that they'd want to share by email, I can put my email in the chat. And so we're definitely happy to learn about things that we didn't know about, or that I didn't include on the slides here. And as we're talking through the topics, it would be great to get feedback on what we think are the biggest accomplishments to highlight through photos and stories versus bullet points. And then another point that I was thinking about relative to accountability is how can we better balance sharing good news with the commitment to transparency and accountability? How can we we want to share successes, and that's kind of what always people want to do, is put their best foot forward with an annual report, but there are also definitely recognizable kind of shortcomings and failures that also can be recognized, and how can we think about how we share things from that respect relative to progress and sustainability.
As you're going back to move forward, are you okay with people putting information in chat?
Oh, absolutely, yes, because we have a way of capturing that and downloading it after the meeting.
Thank you.
So is everybody comfortable if I keep kind of rolling through the accomplishments? Okay. So with neighborhoods, there are a few different actions that were completed. One is related to the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation reviewing the historic tax credit program and developing recommendations to make that more accessible for more communities. And so their response is to pursue a creation of a historic conservation district program. And so they're working on those recommendations. And once there's a draft, and basically the point of that is to have a designation that has less stringent design review requirements, but still would recognize the historic nature of properties and provide access to the tax opportunities. And so that's something that we expect to see moving forward next year. Related to affordable housing, there's a bunch of different kind of funding pots that have either continued or been offered, both relative to affordable rental units and revitalization of vacant houses in impact investment areas for low-income families. There was also a bill passed that sets up a fee structure for properties that have repeated 311 service requests to then kind of capture the costs of the resources for responding to those requests on vacant structures that aren't being maintained. Also, there were informational hearings held related to strategies to eliminate vacant and abandoned properties. For housing, wait a second, I think I have some of these things combined, so I might need to change some of my titles, but there was an agreement announced to put additional money into addressing vacant and abandoned properties with a target of 3,700 properties over a period of 15 years. Related to buildings, there was an ordinance passed for the city that requires certain new buildings to use cool roofing materials. The state has also adopted updated green building codes, and so those will be then adopted by the city with their code updates in 2024. In 2023, the Baltimore Shines program has been implementing solar projects for residences, so they completed 17 projects. There's a bunch of things related to transportation. Our local DOT is doing a transit gaps study to identify where there are kind of needs not being met to connect people to transit. There's the restart of the Red Line planning, and then there are several different kind of big awards of funding that the city has gotten. One I wanted to highlight is the Safe Streets for All grant awarded that'll support implementation of complete streets. Oops. Yes, that's human-made systems. Any questions before I move on to the next section? And I can't see the chat if there's anything in the chat. Should I keep
No
going?
questions. Yep, yeah,
Okay.
no questions to address in the chat.
Okay. So community preparedness, the DP3 was kind of, it was an action that was completed, and that completed an action in the plan. So that's a big update under that topic. There's also a FEMA grant awarded that will support solar and battery storage for resilience hubs in the city. Related to energy, the city established an EV goal for the city's fleet with requirements to meet by 2030. Also related to greenhouse gas emissions, the climate action plan update was completed. Related to clean air, the Code Red Extreme Heat Program, there's been a coordinated approach that's been developed related to alerting people to periods of severe heat and where they can access cooling resources. Related to city schools, they received award Energy Champions Leading the Advancement of Sustainable Schools, I guess a prize. It provides both funding and technical assistance for advancing clean energy with schools. Then related to food systems, the Food Policy Division has a grant with MedStar Harbor Hospital to implement a food prescription program, which basically helps patients access healthy food to improve their health outcomes. And then food resilience was a new topic that was incorporated into the disaster preparedness plan update. So that was everything under that topic. And I know that I've probably missed some things. There was such a big focus on the DP3 and climate action plan for us that those kind of rose to the top for our office. There's nothing on that section. Moving on to nature in the city. There is work underway to plan for a connection to Masonville Cove to provide better access to the nearby neighborhoods. And the Maryland Port Administration is working to conduct public outreach. Temple Schools and the Forest Service are working to map forests and worship centers to identify opportunities for stewardship, and it's connected to the Forest Service StuMap project. The Metropolitan Council is managing a regional greenway project, which will connect Baltimore to a 40-mile trail up to Carroll County. And this will also connect to the reimagined Middle Branch and Baltimore Greenway Trail network at Reedburg Park. And so part of this process is looking at missing links kind of along that network. Nature for nature's sake, rec and parks experienced both gains and losses in protected parkland. There were some new parks created in Port Covington. A portion of Clifton Park was sold to Morgan State University. The there was an updated forest conservation bill that has reestablished existing forest banking as an option for forest mitigation credit. And it will also allow credit for restoration of degraded forests. So that's potentially a great tool for increasing management of degraded forests. Related to trees and forest, the Forestry Division in Rec and Parks is working on updating the recommended tree species list, both to adjust for climate change, and then also looking at increasing tree diversity at a local level as far as species diversity within the city. And then there was also the introduction in City Council of a tree removal on city property bill that's currently being heard in City Council. Related to water, there's the regional task force looking at making recommendations to improve the region's water system. Getting into kind of the recognizing issues, there were a few different contamination issues with the water system in 2023. Green infrastructure, DPW has developed standard specifications for green infrastructure projects, which was an action in the plan. And then this was highlighted at one of our meetings back in the fall. The Ghost Rivers project in Remington helps highlight kind of the story of what's going on in our watershed system through signage and art. Anything from the chat or questions?
Morgan highlighted a good study in chat with the USDA Forest Service, Still Meadow Community Church, and Turnaround Tuesday leading a forest management training program that can be highlighted.
Great.
So that's fantastic to add. And I think that there might be like some food diversion for waste that might be able to be highlighted for the previous slide that you have there.
Okay.
It is not my program, so I won't speak any more on it, but I think that that's a good thing to add, and some other tree donations.
Okay.
Yeah, I can, for the convention center, we have a couple of things both around food and just overall waste diversion that I can send your way and see if it's worth including as well.
Okay, great.
And then under nature in the city, I think, Donzel, I feel like some of the projects that you've been working on might fit under this topic. If you're still here, I don't even know if you're here, but if not, then I think Donzel has some things.
Looks like he might have dropped off, but we can circle back with him.
So should I move on? Okay. I don't know if I'm skipping it, but I thought I had a slide in here for local economy, and my I don't know if what happened to my slide, but so there are accomplishments for local economy, which includes so economy, workforce development, and arts and culture. I know that there are a bunch of different workforce development programs that were launched in the past year. I know DPW had one of those related to arts and culture. There was an archaeological dig relative to the, oh, I'm blanking on the name of the park. I'm just trying to do this from memory since I don't have my slide. But one of the park renovation projects to kind of capture the history of that site before things would be lost. And then the community was interested in having the information kind of gathered and uncovered from that process incorporated into the park. So that was kind of a cool example of incorporating culture into a kind of a new park project. But I'm happy to get relative to those topics, accomplishments that people want to share.
So is there a deadline when you would need to have everything submitted?
I would say if we can get anything within probably the next week or two, that would be really helpful to help us kind of, we'd like to get the annual report out by Earth Day to share with folks.
Okay, and then I heard Morgan mention something about goats really loving structure. So do you need pictures? Would that be helpful too?
Yes, pictures would be very helpful, both for sharing with the annual report and also potentially with the open house event. We'll probably have a slideshow associated with that. And so if there are things that have pictures and even if it's not like an annual report thing, or if it's something in 2024 that isn't a 2023 annual report item, that we can always kind of start collecting for next year or for the open house.
I would like to claim that I'm with the dad joke that I'm a goat photographer, but we'll let that go. I'll see if Sean has some photos, or you could contact Sean to see if he has some photos. I was wondering about the topic of literacy. And there's a lot that goes on in the city about the sharing of information. It could be meetings of sharing of information. One of the things that Baltimore Green Space has done in partnership with the Forest Services is Forest Patch Viewer that makes information available. So I was wondering, where does that fit under literacy? Is it something else? Is it not of interest? You know, I was, you know, because the sustainability, you know, making sure that there's a conversation, right? And sharing of information, building collaboration. I think that's really important, but it may not be appropriate for the reporting. So I was kind of curious about that.
I would say, at least like kind of from my perspective, as far as trying to put the report together, sometimes there are a lot of accomplishments that they almost hit so many topics that it's kind of hard to know where they fit. And so those are still things that we potentially are interested in sharing. Even if they don't like line up specifically with an action in the plan, there are still things that like we might not have foreseen as accomplishments that back in 2019 to work towards, that are still accomplishments that are worth sharing.
Okay. And maybe it's just an appendix or it just appears somewhere else, you know? And then the other thing I was kind of curious about, it occurred to me as I was listening to you, is just like every year, all of the research that's been published that's related to sustainability. Again, not in the report. No one wants that. But, you know, just having that, because, you know, you have the monthly updates and you're like, what are we reading and so on, and, you know, things that are neat, but just, you know, making that available too. And that might be something, Ava, that BSEC could do. Just an idea. You know, I'm just thinking of annual like summations of information.
I think that's a great idea, and also potentially BES, as far as would there be a connection there as well.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if it's almost like an event kind of thing, but I guess like BES has an annual event, and so that's also where it's kind of would we be stepping into somebody else's territory of a group that kind of has an annual research kind of event, as far as does it make sense for us to kind of promote existing resources?
Well, I don't think you're slant drawing on BES, because BES seeks to be all inclusive. Perhaps that's something that's shared as part of the annual meeting of BES that then is also available, you know, for you to share as you like. Okay, I'll work on that.
Great. So yeah, so this is kind of the last slide in what I've prepared, and I'm happy to kind of open it up to the commission and others as far as thoughts on additional things to highlight, or suggestions on kind of the approach for different pieces of the annual report. We're happy to get feedback.
Thanks, Amy. I think that we've gotten a lot of great feedback as we've gone along. And I think maybe there might be something around the green jobs funding network that can kind of help with some of the work in the workforce development section. And your office likely has some accolades that can be incorporated into the plan. I guess
I definitely have things for that topic. I don't know what happened to my slide, because like, as I said, I was trying to remember and pull out of my brain the things that I had pulled together.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll close this up and stop sharing.
And then I think just the one thing for commissioners to know is that once there'll be kind of a review process with the internally with commissioners, so that you can have a quick look at it, and then we'll take a vote to just make sure that we're getting that that we are approving it, and it is ready for ready for public viewing by Earth Day, which means that we have a very short period of time to get information back to Amy, and any thoughts. I know it's a lot to digest, but it'd be helpful to get that information. Are you saying by March 29th? Is that what you're looking for?
I think that would be ideal. That would give us the most time. And I actually haven't, as far as then a vote for the commission, relative to an Earth Day launch. I guess I hadn't thought of that relative to then being able to give the commission members, kind of a preview of the annual report to have time to review it and discuss for the April meeting. I don't know if there's kind of a way to coordinate that as far as if we can share that by the 17th. And I don't know, I feel like if the main meeting is May 30th, that's kind of a long time to wait to have a vote, but I'm not quite sure what the best approach is to provide time for review and then consideration of a vote.
We've never really had a vote before. It's always just been the co-chairs have a letter of approval and people on the commission have had a chance to preview it before it's published. That is probably going to be the easiest thing to do, knowing that we have a really robust in-person meeting in April, and we might not have time for that, depending on people being there in person and everything. But I would love to have an opportunity for anyone that is kind of open it up for public comment. So if there's anyone that's on the line that knows that there's some things that we should include that we might not be aware of, it'd be, and you have not placed it in chat, it'd be a good thing for you to share it with us at this point. All right, well, hearing none, then it sounds like we're committing to getting some information back to you by next Friday.
Okay.
And it'd be great if you can send this presentation with
Yes.
all of the slides that you want to commissioners so that they can be able to update and give you some thoughts.
Great. Yeah, I'll get that uploaded to the website and share the link out so that everybody can reference that.
And you mentioned early about things that might not have worked that well. So I don't know if you want to, if we want to have additional conversation around that. We did try that hybrid meeting once in 2023. That didn't go well.
And part of why I bring that up too is like, since this is kind of the commission reporting to city council, I don't know if there are any kind of focuses or things that related to the commission message would come across in that. So that's a thing to consider as well.
It's a great time to be very Ava, can you hold on just one moment? Because it opened up both your mic and Val's mic at the same time. So you sound like you are a robot from another planet at this moment. So Val, you might have to hop off since you're logged on at the same account. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me okay now?
It's still the same robot voice.
I think that will chat if
Can you type it in the chat maybe?
Sorry, Jared, I know that you had a couple of things to say. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just hiccup actually. I'm waiting for Ava.
That is a great idea. So thank you for that. I think overall improvements that are needed really has to do around funding for any type of initiative that's been outlined in the plan that we haven't had an opportunity to get to. Either because of a lack of funding or a lack of positions to support an initiative or a program. So that's the one thing. And then I think that with the zero waste manager, I mean, if I have my year correct, that was a long time coming and something that was implemented asked for very early in the plan, as well as the elevation of the sub cabinet. And I don't know if my year's correct with that, but that might be something else to highlight. And a new co-chair. The first time that we've gotten a new appointed co-chair outside of the beginning. So that's another thing to highlight. And new commissioners. So then, Amy, we look forward to getting the updates and for this presentation, and then getting back to you information by Friday, March 29th.
Yep, great, thank you. So following the annual report discussion, which I was leading, we also have on the agenda 2024 sustainability priorities that Ava was going to cover. I don't know if we want to try your microphone again and see if you're able to speak or if you need to call in.
Very better now. Yeah, let me yeah. It's been not long, but long.
Didn't work.
While
Okay.
we're waiting for Ava to figure out her technical problem, I do have a question to pose to folks relative to the planning of the April meeting. Would that be okay to kind of bring up to fill the gap?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So OpenWorks, they have a lot of different programs and neat things at their facilities, and we would have the option to potentially have a tour offered. We'd have to pay a little bit extra, and we're fine doing that. But if folks are interested in that, I would need to kind of have a number of attendees that would be doing the tour portion so that we could coordinate for that. So I kind of feel like it would be, I think they do 30 people per group. And so I'll kind of put that out there. And when I share the meeting information, I'll put it out there that I would be asking for folks who are interested in the tour to let me know that you have interest so I can kind of come up with the numbers on confirming spots for a tour if folks are interested in that.
Can you hear me okay now? Amy? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
you're
Sorry, I
back.
had to drop off and log back in. I apologize for the audio challenges, everyone. But yes, regarding the 2024 kind of agenda for the year, We are hyper-focused on continuing the implementation of various aspects of the sustainability plan, in addition to the launch and socialization of the 2 plans that we updated last year, the Climate Action Plan and the city's disaster preparedness plan. And in addition to that, we want to also support the implementation of other climate-related plans across the city, such as the DPW Solid Waste Management Plan. And so part of that is kind of taking out specific actions and sectors where we know we want to make a significant amount of progress on. And this year, we really want to make sure we're aligning ourselves up well as a city for taking as much advantage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act funding. Thus far, the city has secured roughly $100 million of grant funding from those sources, based on data from our mayor's office of infrastructure development. And we want to continue that trend and continue supporting proactively going after those different federal funding opportunities. And aside from that, we do have some kind of really critical and timely updates as it relates to our floodplain management program. We were able to support and host FEMA for a site visit earlier this month, or beginning the last week of February, first week of March, and they provided some really insightful feedback on some aspects of the program, and we can give a more detailed update about what that looks like, what those updates and those that feedback from FEMA look like. And we're also hoping to begin the process for drafting one of our first watershed master plans for the city and for 2 of our watersheds across the region. So we'll have a more complete list to share in the actual annual report. But if there are other priorities that folks have in mind or want to highlight, definitely feel free to share that. And as always, we are working really hard to support and foster cross-agency collaboration, as well as stakeholder engagement across the city and the region to help meet and support the goals that we're aiming to achieve.
Ava, you went back on mute, so I think the last part of what you said went out, but I do wanted to just recognize that that you're asking, can you just repeat one more time what you're asking people to do?
Oh, I'm sorry. If anyone had specific kind of like priorities or ideas in terms of that agenda topics, sustainability or climate mitigation or adaptation topics for the office or the city to consider as a part of that sustainability agenda that we'll capture in the annual report, please send that to us along with the information for the annual report in general in terms of updates and in making sure we're including as comprehensive an update as possible.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Should we move on to public comment? All right. So we can start off just taking public comments. One thing that I personally, this is more of a comment, I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't feel like it fit anywhere else, but in developing the plan, I know that it spoke specifically about vacants and the mayor's plan to reduce the number of vacants and develop them. I recently read that in City Council that they are reevaluating the vacancy values program, and just wondering if anyone had any additional insights, or I'm sorry, not vacancy values, but the Dollar House program. If anybody had any additional insight on that and where City Council was with that, or if anyone wanted to weigh in.
I know that it was on the Board of Estimates today for some portion of it. I cannot speak on exactly what that was, but I assume that there was an approval today at the BOE, so I assume that there is additional next steps are in the works related to that program.
One thing that's under consideration is basically how to roll out the program so that it's equitable, makes funds available, and also doesn't, I don't want to say favor, but allow for-profit developers to basically buy up a lot of the housing and exclude low to moderate income folks. So that's the thing specifically that's, I think, being looked at and looked into. I think that touches a lot of issues that we discuss here in the Sustainability Commission. So just wanted to bring it to folks' attention. Just generally speaking, I don't have an agenda with it, but I think it just touches a lot of issues that we touch here with the plan, generally, and sustainability more at large. So. Anybody else have any other stuff that they're interested in, curious about? I'm going to do a little bit more research, and thank you for putting that link in.
So nothing to add as far as just general public comment. I think I really look forward to seeing what people's suggestions might be for inclusion in the annual report as we tee up and get ready for the next full plan. So that's just kind of my random rambling thoughts about that. Well, we can close the meeting early if that works for everyone.
I'll second that.
All right, fantastic. Well, we will see you all in April. Looking forward to seeing the suggestions that will come directly to Amy by Friday, March 29th on topics, as well as pictures of goats and other things, and any other topics that would be included for the overall comprehensive nature of the agenda. So thank you all. Look forward to seeing you in April.